Gentlemen, today's video is about flipper mechanisms. These are the flippers for Twilight Zone, and that one seems to get stuck as soon as I turn my back on this machine. Comes back to me. It even gets stuck when the owner is here. I mean, it pulls in, but it doesn't want to let go. And then as soon as I start playing with it, it pulls back properly. It is a bit sticky, so I'm going to remove this from the playfield, and I'm going to chuck it on the bench and go through it properly and see what's wrong with it. Alright, the first thing I want to do is first of all I switch the machine off, and then I'm going to take a picture of these wires, and then I'm going to desolder them so I can take this mechanism right off. Here goes. Now that I have this thing closer to me, I see I need to get rid of these wires as well. That's for the flipper end of stroke switch. Just get the bottom ones first so we can... So here it is on the bench. So this is the flipper bat, and it comes in from the top of the playfield through that flipper ball over there, and when you tighten this bolt here, it grips the flipper shaft. Now if I just feel it like this, it feels absolutely smooth. Doesn't feel like there's anything wrong with it. So I reckon I might have wasted my time on getting this undone, and a small adjustment on this gripper over here could have might be solving my problem. It might be that you just need, have a look at the gap there in between the flipper ball and this, which is called the bushing, the plastic thing. I don't know if you can see it, but I think I need to organize a little gap there. Now the problem with organizing a little gap there is that you lose alignment with the plunger and the coil. So the plunger must ideally be lining up concentric with the center of the coil. And if you want to move that thing down a bit to give you a gap so as to reduce friction, then you might lose concentricity between the plunger and the coil itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave, let me just get the spring out the way. I'm going to shave a little bit of plastic off the end of this flipper bushing so that there's a gap there, so we know we're not causing any friction there. To do that, I use this thing. It's normally used to make holes in wood, but the tip over there fits into the hole, and then the blade will shave off just a wee bit of plastic depending on how much force you put on it. You can overdo it quite easily, so let's try and do that without overdoing it. Just get myself around the camera. I reckon that's enough. Just a slight shave, and now there might be little burrs, little rough edges. Right down that side I can still see a ring. Let me just give it a little bit more on that side. Okay, that I think is enough. We've still got plenty of that left, because you don't want to take it all away. That makes sure that the flipper shaft stays straight. And it takes a hell of a hammering, so the more there is of that thing, the better. Right. Let's see what that does to the concentricity and the gap. So now I have if I just let the whole thing go, the plunger will settle into its most comfortable point. And I do see that I now have a proper gap there between the ball and the bushing. It wasn't like that before. And that's the amount I took off. So I might have done this for nothing. Anyway, so now we're sure, and I've shown you how to do that if there's ever a problem with that. Sometimes you have this stuff on this end sticking up too high above your playfield and you need to take it off this end. Not normally, but sometimes you have a bushing that was made for a different machine or a different brand or something. Comes out funny and you have to shave it off. So I'm going to put it back like this and see what happens. But while I'm here, I'm going to take the coil off to show you by undoing these cap screws over here. I'm not going to undo the screws over here because I don't need to, and because they're difficult to get into because you have to work around the plunger with a screwdriver. Over here I can do it with an Allen key driver, and it's stronger and it's just nicer to do. So let's do that. But that one fits really nicely, and it's a 4mm. So let's get on with the 4s and undo those. And you'll see both of them will have a spring washer. The flipper stop still looks okay. It's nice and dirty, so it's not going to weld. What sometimes happens is that the plunger strikes this flipper stop or the plunger stop, and it does a small, almost imperceptible cold weld because they're similar metals, and the metal structure just sort of merges over there. So the flipper gets stuck right at the top. Now, it's not the case with this one because it's still there, it's just sticky. What I do in a case like that is I braze on just a little bit of brass to make sure that it's not the same metal as the plunger, and then it stops that problem. Or you can just grease it. Make sure that it's so dirty that it can't weld. But the grease can get displaced, and putting grease in these things is never a good idea because eventually it gets sticky. So while I'm here and I have that coil undone, I'm going to clean the inside, and then I'm going to lubricate it with silicone lubricant because it goes completely dry and it stays slippery. That gunk you see in there is from Q20 or WD-40 or whatever the case may be. And that stuff, it's nice and runny when you spray it on, but after a month or so it evaporates and it becomes gooey and sticky, and it attracts dust, and the dust goes and sits inside there, and it just becomes a mess. So don't use any of that stuff. If you're gonna lube where you have, none of this needs lube because it's all metal on nylon. That's metal on nylon. That's metal on nylon. So you don't really need lubrication there. These materials are chosen so that they don't have a big coefficient of friction between them. But where you have metal on metal, like on some of the drop target mechanisms on the old Gottliebs, where you have metal on metal, that you'll need to lube with something like 3-in-1 oil, a light oil, but not WD-40, not Q20, because it evaporates too fast. And then just put a drop on the tip of a toothpick and just touch the bushing where it's supposed to be lubed. Now all the stuff has been sprayed, you can see, because it's dirty. And the last person to touch this machine was me, and I wouldn't have done it. So I think it's fairly clean and it's fairly loose. I don't think I've ever done this barrel, but we'll do it now. Now I want to clean the inside of this barrel. What I use is one of these, and if you've ever worked for PW and Sons, you would have been issued one of them, but you can get them from a gun shop there. Cleaners for this one is for a pistol, so it's nice and short. But I've got this little piece of cloth that I wind on here, and I like that brass brush they have on the end of this cleaner. That fluid there is called benzene in this country, with a YNE. It's not ENE. It's not the cancer-causing stuff. So I'm just wiping the inside of this barrel. And you can see all the gunk is gone. It's still a bit grey, but it's not sticky anymore. And this stuff will evaporate very fast. It will evaporate quickly and get rid of all the ugliness. Because it's all sitting on this little piece of cloth here. Okay, let's get it back together. First things first, you see how the ring there and that little protrusion there is one thing. It's called a coil sleeve. Now the coil sleeve must go through that ring there, so it tells you which way around the coil must go. And if you've forgotten, you take a look at the photographs that you took in the beginning, because it's easy to forget shit like that. That's why I always take photographs. It's them there. Gonna start shaking now. Because your oaks make me nervous, eh? Come on, you piece of shit. There we go. Let's just loosen it slightly. So we'll have play on that bracket so the holes line up for the second nut, the second bolt. Well, it's either a bolt or a machine screw. Let's call it a machine screw. Is it tight? Well, the only trick is to get... I might want to clean this on the inside as well. Now for that, I'm going to need a smaller one of these. Let's just check if this brush will go through. Well, only just. But it looks pretty clean now. Let's just put a little bit of benzene through there just to wash out whatever gunk might be there. Right. That feels as dry as a bone. There's no grease or stickiness on here. But while we're here, we may as well make sure. Here we go. That hole there is for the flipper shaft. So that will go in like that. You get the first screw in. Working upside down is never nice. But once you got the first screw in, it stays there. He says to her. Right. That's one. I'm just going to do them halfway to make sure that I don't cross thread these screws or put them in skew or anything like that, due to the fact that, you know, if you put them in tight and the bracket is skew, then you might be off center on the hole that you're trying to put the screw back into. That's looking for trouble, trust me. Okay, so I've got my soldering iron heating up. It's not quite there yet. I've got my thing longer to hold onto wire without burning my fingertips, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So having a thing longer is one thing. Getting it into the right position is quite something else. There's one. There's two. Let's get the camera and see which wire goes where. As you can see, the orange wire goes to the bottom lug, and the blue and yellow wire goes to the top lug on my camera. It's nice. It's actually nice to do this on a phone because the phone screen is bigger. But my phone is otherwise engaged at the moment. It's actually nicer to do it on a tablet because the screen is so big. But this camera works, and this is the little Canon I've been telling you about. I can run it with one hand while I'm holding other stuff with the other hand. And it's heavy enough so I don't have camera shake like you have on a phone. So that's my second tip. And these things are cheap, man. Get two. Did I remember right? Yes, I remembered right. There's one with purple goes in the middle. And you'd think that undoing the wires is a mission, and taking this thing out of the machine is a mission. Yes, it is a mission, but it's a bigger mission to try and do this while that thing is still stuck in the machine. Let's get the flipper batch stuck in the top. And now we have to sort of coax it into position because it needs to line up nicely before it does. And I need to make sure that I'm on this side of this flipper switch. Seems a lot more willing now. So on these machines, you have a little split, almost like a little tube that goes through there. And it is for doing this. You stick a toothpick in there, And you bring this flipper all the way down so that it just touches so that it just touches the toothpick, and then you know the flipper's in the right position. And because I have the spring in, that will be its resting position. So all I have to do now is make sure I can tighten that bottom bolt without adjusting the flipper. So I'm going to hold it with my one hand there and tighten it from the bottom. That'll do, big. That'll do.